Let's look at creating some more stuff here. So, as I said, you have this create panel, and this is the way I create things most of the time, but you also see a menu item for create. That's kind of a shortcut to the create panel plus a type of thing plus then another type of thing. So right here, if you're creating this first section of the menu corresponds to create geometry. So create geometry, standard, primitives, extended, AEC objects, compound, all these things. You'll see if you drop down into here, these menu items match these little rollouts here. So can be a quicker way to get to some of that stuff. I started using 3D Studio before they had a create menu. You created everything through here, so I still tend to create it through this panel, although sometimes it is a heck of a lot quicker to go just navigate the menu structure this way as opposed to go to here, go to here, go to here, go to there, and then hit a button. So you can get through it with fewer clicks sometimes. However, that being said, I still oftentimes use this method. So let's create a few things. If we create some standard primitives here, let's start out with that. Let's create a sphere. All right. Now you can see that before you start creating something, you can set a few things. Creation method, you can have keyboard numeric entry here to create it, and then a sphere itself has all these different parameters pertaining to its being a sphere. It has a radius, it has a certain number of segments, and it has some options here. Now, we definitely won't be able to get through all the options of everything, but before you create something, it's a good idea to look through and see what you've got. If I just draw a sphere, it's going to draw from the center out. Well, I mean, that's fine, but maybe I want to put a sphere on the floor. Well, there's a great option for that. Base to pivot will draw a sphere, but it will use the bottom of the sphere as sort of the point at which it is drawn from and grows from, so it'll automatically appear on the floor or a table or wherever you want to put it. So sometimes it's handier to do that. And then when I draw a sphere, okay, so I'll draw that. And now I have a number of segments that I can choose, and what that refers to is how many divisions that sphere has. And you'll see most objects have something similar, the idea of segments, which means 3D Studio, each object, if it's a round sphere, is actually made up of polygons. And those polygons, if we right-click on my perspective view here, or the name perspective view, I get some options for this view. A handy option is this thing called edged faces. You can switch a view to wireframe. These ones default to wireframe, so perspective defaults to smooth plus highlights, which means that it's nice and shaded in here. But you can change it. There's several different ways that you can display something. The common ones to use are smooth plus highlights, wireframe, or smooth plus highlights, and then this thing called edged faces, which is kind of a combination of both of them. So when I zoom into that sphere a whole lot, I can see that this seemingly round sphere is actually made up of flat planes or polygons. 3D Studio has a couple of different geometry types. It's best at polys, and so we'll get into some of the differences between geometry types, but most of the time when you're creating geometry in 3D Studio, it is polygons. It is like this. So it is even round stuff is actually made up of little flat planes. So if I was getting really near to this sphere, all of a sudden the edges of it are going to show up. So I want to increase the number of segments and make that thing seem rounder. Okay, so as I increase the number of segments of that thing, I increase the number of polygons it is made out of, and so I make it divide more between them, and it's going to be rounder, less planes. If I go way down to as low as you can go here, I get a really rough sphere. Hey, you can already get a sense of what's so awesome about 3D Studio is that any changes I make in this panel here, while my sphere tool and the sphere I've just created is active, it allows me to modify that thing really fast and really easily. So I can create it to be a hemisphere, and so it just sort of sinks back into the ground from whence it came, and I've created a hemisphere that way. You can also turn a thing called slice on, and you can create a little orange or whatever you want to make. So you turn that off, and it's a whole sphere. Base to pivot. All of these options update the sphere live, and you can see what they do. So this is one reason why 3D Studio is so awesome, is that it allows you to quickly see what it is you're doing and that the changes you make. It's one thing that's so great about it.